So here's another day of my the replacement of my turbo on my 1.6 HDI Peugeot Partner 2007, roughly about 105,000 miles. So today is really putting back the exhaust and the shields back together. So now next thing is to put the two shields and then the exhaust, get this clamp here, get the clamp on top, connect all this, and then actually start the car. So this is how the two shields work. So this is the back shield towards the back of the engine, and it goes like that towards the back. Then comes the exhaust. If you have catalyst converter, it's there. Well, I don't really have catalytic converter, not catalyst. Catalytic converter goes like that. So here are two bolts that stick. So I can't really have to hold it otherwise. Yeah, it goes like that. So there's one of these sticking here and sticking here, so it's stabilized on these. Then the two. So then it comes the top. This is the front heat shield, so the radiator is from that side. So this one goes on like that. Of course, yeah. Well, this is stopping it. It's got these two bolts here. So these bolts bolt together. Then these here bolt together, and this actually that's it. That's the whole exhaust and heat shield part. So this here stick. There is a big bolt here that goes, but that's about it. This is held by pieces here, and then of course these clamps around there and at the bottom. That's it. So I'm not gonna really film everything. Just a few steps here and there. So first thing is to this is from underneath. Here is the oil sump. This is the first pin, and this is the second where the back shield goes, and here is the back shield. I mean, it's a bit awkward to film and really put, but let me see how I can show. So first is that position there, kind of. If I can make it inside in the first and then in the second. Come on, there we go. That's it. Basically that's the back shield, first pin and then the second. I'm gonna really check if everything doesn't touch anything, but it's very unlikely. So the back shield is from the front, and the front shield is from the top. So this is from the bottom, and the front shield is from the top. I'll show it now. Next is the heat shield from the top. Here is the old one. No, the rear one. And here it is. That's a bit of a fiddly procedure. Kind of one has to kind of squeeze it around this pipe. So it's a bit of quite a bit of a wiggling around and trying to kind of position it so it won't touch anything, but I think this time it went kind of alright. Yeah, that was actually brilliant. This went in perfectly. I have to actually put a string here just to keep it upright, so then I can put the exhaust from inside and put it up. There we go. I've hooked it up here for the clamp for the bonnet. Next thing is really to push the exhaust from underneath and see how this will go. Maybe I can remove that one because it will be kind of in between. I don't think there is anything else that I need to remove. Let's see how this will go. Pushing it up might not be too easy, but let's see how this will go. Shouldn't be too difficult though. It came from actually from here. That was actually much easier than I thought. So I can kind of hook it up. I think it's the that is stopping it is the heat shield. So I'll really lower this heat shield on slightly towards the bottom. So that actually was from removing putting it back in the exhaust was actually really easy from underneath. It was no problem whatsoever. So I'll pre-tighten all the parts, all the clamps and the bolts and so, but not really tighten, just pre-tighten them so they can kind of still loosely associate with each other. So I can tie them up. So here is what really is underneath, how it looks underneath the car. So this is on top. Here is the shield going down there. The return. So the shield at the back. I mean, you can't quite see, but that's part of the shield at the back. Exhaust, the clamp down here, and underneath the exhaust side. So nothing really. Everything's fairly loose. Nothing here. The bolts. Yeah, let me see. Here down there. Maybe you can't see. Perhaps now. Yeah, there is the bolt there where this clamps on, as I was explaining previously, this clamps on. So I'll put that one pre-tighten, not really tight, everything just pre-tighten it. And then tying everything, torquing everything. So this bolt again, this clamp was rather difficult. I didn't film it, but it was rather difficult with two cross inside like that and like that. And now I bend them a bit, so then I had to straighten them, so it was a bit of a nightmare actually. I'll put some copper slip, copper grease or whatever on it, because it doesn't much matter actually. It will yeah, it won't be, because it's too hot and cold in there, so it won't be really that good, but just to slip easier. I mean, eventually it will, this copper grease won't help, so it won't really turn again when next time if I need to undo it. So this is the cut here, goes like that, from the other side goes on top of that, like that, to kind of lock. Yeah, that slipped alright, kind of. Just to make sure that everything's in there, I can't push it anymore. So this thing, this with a cut piece here goes on like that, so to lock into this, so locks like into that goes on top of that. That's all right actually. It's a pre-tightened, and this closed now. This actually closed, and it'll probably close even more. So that's actually good. So to do the same one on top. So here's this clamp on top. So this is the I think because there is a shield here, this particular shield, how does it go? It goes like that. This particular shield, and this thing really touches that side. I think it has touched quite a few times there. So the only position that this can be, it's like that actually, a bit like that probably. I think in general it's the other way. I think in general it's down here, that side, but well. It's here. It's even more difficult to put in a wrench. So what I actually do is do it the same way. Move the bolt and slip it on top. Well, easier said than done. Slip it on top, and then that side potentially, and then extend it and slip it over. There we go. Perfect. Actually, this worked out from the first time. I can't believe it. Put the bolt from that side. So with the slippy thing on here as the other bolt. Then that one on top like that. To click like that. Put some copper slip, but it doesn't quite much matter because there's too much heat and eventually it kind of burns off. So I'll put some, but yeah, well, it doesn't really make that. I had previously put a bit of copper slip, but it was completely gone. I couldn't quite separate the two things. Hopefully this time it will be a bit easier, but I sincerely doubt it. The same difficulty, but hopefully I don't need to really undo that again. And the boat on top. So I think that how it normally was, it was like that. So you kind of put a torque wrench there. Maybe I can do it like that this time as well. I mean, it doesn't so much matter actually which way it is. Or I can turn it around. So next thing I'll hook up the. Oh, actually I can leave. I'm not too sure. Let me do. I'll hook up the. I've removed the shield currently, but I'll put it later on just to put the wastegate. I think the wastegate, it goes like that underneath here, and I can hook it to that, and then put it here in the hook here next the boat. It won't be entirely visible, but it's a bit difficult to show. So this is really the clip. I'm trying not to lose it. This is the clip that goes onto the wastegate. Trying to shine, but not quite. On the wastegate down here, so it doesn't. So it clips. So I'll remove my gloves when I have a bit of a feel and not really lose this this point, and I'll slip it on, and then it's a matter of just pushing it with a screwdriver and try not to lose it anywhere. There we go. It's actually perfect. The wastegate can't move anywhere. So just to test the wastegate. If you want to see how to test the wastegate, here is a video how to do that. It's a quick test. That kind of works. So I think I'll hook up this like that. So what I decided to do is put the bolt down so I can put the wrench like that and then undo it, or from really big extension from down there, well, potentially possible with a bit of a kink or something. So these two bolts, the one from the bottom and this one are 20 Newton meters. So I'll do that 20. Well, you can't see much, but that's what I'm doing. The bolt and the wrench. There's not too much space. And that's 20. So that's nice and steady. And now 20 for the one at the bottom. So I did the 21 at the bottom. So now I'll put slide in the front heat shield. That should be fairly easy, but you never kind of know. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. There we go. Not too bad actually. Kind of alright. Now to put the two bolts at the bottom and the two bolts in the middle. So what I'll do, I'll actually put this bracket here, and because I don't want to because I have to put a rod here to tie it to 30. I can tie it now at 230, but then I have to undo it just to see that oil is leaking from it. I'll explain later. So oil is leaking around here, and then I have to tie it again, but the rod has to be there. So it's just easier to hook this up so this doesn't really shake at all. Let's see. I think this bolt is roughly about 10 Newton meters, so I just tie it 10. It doesn't need to be too much. There you go, that's nice and actually stable. I can put the rod exactly here, tie this to 30 Newton meters. Well, I have to actually undo, slip oil inside with a syringe, then tie it up to 30 Newton meters, then kind of undo it and see working, then kind of undo it and do it again. Next thing is to replace the filter, the oil filter, and this is empty. I've already removed it. So I'm using Bosch P923. It's all in the description of the video. It came down. So it's quite nice filter, but crucially it comes with a seal. So that's actually quite cool. Otherwise, it's a bit of a difficulty to source or use the same filter. So one shouldn't really use the same filter. So I'll first put the filter in. Because there is a hole down there. There's a hole, and then put the filter, put the seal on. Yeah, that's all right. One has to pay attention to the seal. I want to actually see if the seal is yeah, the seal is actually good. It hasn't distorted. Tie this up 25 Newton meters, and this is 27 millimeter socket. So next thing is to fill up with oil. So I'm using Total Quartz Neo ECS 5W30. So it's easier just to use a jar to measure it. So I'll because it's roughly about, well, it says 3.75 liters if it's a brand new filter. So I'll fill 3.5 liters. Wait till tomorrow, then measure with the oil filler. Oil stick, and then top it up just to be on the exact kind of a 2 or 3 bars from the top. So this is roughly so I'll put 1 liter and then 1.5 liters, so 3.5 liters roughly. I'll put a bit more kind of tomorrow. Wait for this to drop down, and then I'll kind of try to make it. Try to make the dipstick roughly about 2 to 3 of these off here. So 2 or 3 bars from the top. Not really the maximum, but just off the maximum. So next day of my installation of new turbo cartridge in my 1.6 HDI Peugeot Partner, roughly about 105,000 miles. So filled in the oil, roughly about one or two ticks from the max for the oil. Put a new oil filter down there. So next thing is really to install the turbo to the intercooler pipe, and from the kit, from the Narians kits, there is O-ring that I have to replace actually. Easy with a screwdriver, and this is fairly old O-ring. It's very easy to kind of slip off. And from the kit there were two of these, so I used one of those. So this will slip on top. There you go. Nice O-ring here that will clip on the turbo. Next thing to undo these precaution measures. So I'll really clean a bit. There is quite a bit of oil around here, so I'll clean it just slightly too. If I take it again, just to be able to observe if there is any more oil coming in, and I'll remove that one as well. It has been actually cleaned pretty well. Of course, both this will need a bit of oil, so I'll have a bit of oil on my finger just to kind of make a good seal, not really to do it kind of dry. Put a bit on here, also a bit on that one. That's already oily. Next thing I'll this will go on that. First, yeah, first needs to go in here. That's actually nice. Then clip it. Then put that hose, silicone hose. There we go. That's his. Now the bolt underneath here. I think this is 8 Newton meters or 10, but I'll do 8. It doesn't so much matter. Oh, I can check it, but I think that's about 8 Newton meters. That's kind of all right. And then I need to tie this up. Next thing is actually to put the original kind of air intake for the turbo, because it's just easier to put in, and I haven't positioned the camera, but that's fairly easy to do. I haven't positioned the camera, but this is how it is the original. This is the original. It's not the oil catch can. So basically, I'll push it down here, then in the breather, and then in the turbo, tie it here and there, and that's it. Next is to put some oil inside the cartridge, tie this to 30 Newton meters, and then crank it to, remove the oil, the injectors, the electric components, crank it for 15 minutes so oil can go up to the turbo, then connect the injectors again, and then start it. I'll start it without the wastegate, so the turbo doesn't really spin. Then I'll undo this, see if there is a flow of oil, then close it, tie it to 30 Newton meters, and then let it tick over for a while, then stop it, connect the wastegate, and then start it again, and then go for a drive. So that's the I think it's kind of getting there. There we go, that kind of clicked everywhere. I have to just tie it up. So next thing is to undo this and slip some oil inside. So really I have a syringe that I can kind of, it's a bit on the thick side, this syringe. I mean, if it was thin, syringe would be better because it goes inside, but still that's actually, as long as there is some oil in there. Undo that. You have to be careful not to kind of lose this bottom the bottom seal. kind of lose it. Here we go. I've moved it to one side. Hopefully I won't lose that that O-ring. So for the moment I'll leave it as it is until I can put some oil in the syringe. Clean oil, not really any dirty oil. Okay, so I'll hold. So I have a bit of oil in the syringe. It's a bit of a thicker syringe, so I'll try to hold it so I don't really lose this O-ring. So it's basically somewhere in there, trying to squeeze a bit of oil. I mean, it doesn't really go too much down, but that should be alright. Tighten it to 30 Newton meters with kind of 20.5. This is 15 millimeters, so you kind of put it in there in between that and that. So when this slightly moves, when the pipe slightly moves, it doesn't really move too much, so it doesn't bend, so only slightly. So I have currently it's 30 Newton meters. Let's see how this will go. So there was actually no need. There was no need. It didn't touch. Still hasn't really touched. But it's still better to have it. So when it starts running, I'll undo this. See that oil is dripping from that. So well, the best case scenario is from the oil return, not to hook it up to the sump, but take it off. Run this for 1 minute, and whatever is returned, you collect whatever is returned. The return should be more than 300 milliliters per minute, but it's rather difficult to access, and I don't really have another oil return to kind of compare, to kind of plug it in, so it's rather awkward. So I'll kind of undo this slightly, see that oil is slipping from here, from the seal, and then we'll tighten it to 30 Newton meters. But that's it. Initially I'll start it without that here. I'm trying to without the wastegate. Let me show it. I'll start it without the wastegate vacuum pipe disconnected, so the turbo doesn't really spin.